Would you like to run downhill with more confidence? Maybe you're a little bit hesitant when you run downhill and you're worried about falling over and maybe causing yourself an injury. Or maybe you feel like you could maintain your pace a bit better if you were just a bit more sure about what you were doing when you're running downhill and you didn't feel like you're kind of all over the place and you had to slow down. If this sounds like you, then do keep watching. In this video, you're going to find out how to master downhill running so that you're running with confidence and you feel like you're in control. And although technique does play a role in this, it's not all about technique, as you'll find out. I'm Coach Nicola and I'm a running coach and women's fitness specialist. I created this YouTube channel to help runners get fitter, faster and stronger so that you can run with more confidence both on the road and on the trails. First off, let's start with looking at technique. So like with a lot of running, there is a technique to downhill running. For many people, running downhill is really nerve-wracking. You kind of hit the downhill, you start to feel maybe your pace increasing a little bit, you start to feel a little bit out of control and a bit worried about falling over, a bit worried about injury. It can feel really, really scary, and for a lot of people, you start to put the brakes on. What do I mean by that? Well, you start to lean back. You use your landing foot as a brake and you start to slow down. But that can actually lead to injury and can cause time to be lost if you're in a race. So rather than leaning back, you want to stay upright and maybe even slightly lean into the hill. Just not so much that it turns into a downhill roly-poly. You really don't want that. So it's kind of getting that balance and finding out kind of what feels best for you. Keep those hips high as you run. Don't lean forward from the waist or the hips. You want to stay tall, get that core engaged, and that lean is kind of the whole body lean, not like a waist lean or a hip lean. And finally, you want to be in control and feel controlled. And one way you can do that is by using your arms. Now, quite often we're kind of told that running should be like this and keep your arms as close to you as you can. But for downhill running, you can use your arms however you want. They're going to be like counterweights, they're going to help you to balance. You can have them really wide and be like an aeroplane going down the hill. You can bring them out here. So whatever you feel like gives you that nice balance. Don't be afraid to use your arms. Don't be afraid to put your arms out and just run down the hill like a child. So have that image in your head and hopefully that will give you a little bit more confidence as well. And then you need to practice. To get confident doing something, you need to practice doing something. Just like we do with uphill repeats when we're practicing to try and get faster going uphill, we'll do uphill repeats. You can do downhill repeats, and that will really help you kind of practice that descent, practice that feeling confident, practice your kind of upright position and that slight lean and using your arms or anything else that you want to kind of feel a little bit more confident in. The more you run downhill, the more confident that you will be, and also the more you will kind of work out that sweet spot of running fast but not running too fast and working out where that is for you. What I recommend is that you start off with a shallow hill, so not a really steep hill to begin with, and then just work your way up. So maybe do a couple of downhill repeats on a smaller, shorter, less steep hill, and then maybe in a as you progress, you can progress that to maybe a slightly longer downhill run, a slightly steeper downhill run. But just remember, when you're first starting out, don't do too many at a time. So just like when you first start doing uphill repeats, you might only do 3 or 4 of them at a time. You kind of want to stick to that same sort of number because that's going to build up the muscles that you need to run strong when you're running downhill. And to go with that as well, if you have a really hilly race coming up, make sure that you really study the route so that you know where the hills are, you know where the uphills are, you know where the downhills are, and that way you can pace yourself a bit better, because there's no point in being halfway through a race and thinking this is the final downhill and you're running down it, you're giving it all you got, and then, oh, actually, that wasn't the final downhill, I've got more to go. So yeah, knowing your race route, and that's actually, even if you're not got a hilly race, looking at your route and kind of working out and trying to think of a little strategy can really, really help you. Then you want to build specific downhill running strength, and that's through working the muscles that help you run downhill. If you've ever done a really hilly run and a couple of days later you really feel it in your legs, your thighs, they're just burning, you've got those DOMs, that's more likely to be from the downhill than from the uphill. And that's because when you run downhill, your quads are put on a lot of load. They're in the eccentric phase of that kind of running movement where there's a lot of load put on the muscles when they're kind of stretch. So you're stretching and loading your muscles as you run downhill, and that can cause a little bit more stress on the muscles. It can take them a little bit longer to repair. So making sure those muscles are strong in that eccentric movement when the muscles are kind of lengthened and under load is really important. And one way you can do this is through things like eccentric squats. That's when you kind of go down into the squat for a count of 4 and then come up for 1, or go down for 6 and come up for 1. So the lowering phase is longer than the upward phase. That's going to really train those muscles. Another thing you can do is reverse Nordic curls. I really like these, but again, there's something that when you start doing them, only do a few, because if you do too many, you will feel that DOMS afterwards, and we're not really looking for that DOMS. We're looking at building the muscles to prevent the DOMS. So yeah, if you start off with reverse Nordic curls, just do a couple to begin with, and then add to it. Do a couple. If you feel okay the next day, then the next time you do them, maybe do a couple more, and just build up slowly like that. But it's not all about the quads. When you're running downhill, you also need strong supporting muscles. These are your adductor muscles, or your inner thigh muscles. What their role is to bring the legs back to the midline and create that stability that you need when you're running. Often when we're running downhill, there's a lot of instability there, especially if you're running downhill on trail where it's uneven surfaces, but even running downhill on roads, there's a lot of instability as you're kind of trying to keep your balance as you're going downhill. So strong adductor muscles are really, really important. What can you do to train your adductor muscles? Lateral lunges, kind of bridges where you kind of squeeze a Pilates ball between your knees, sideline leg lifts, anything that exercises that inner thigh muscle is really going to help you when you're downhill running. But as well as strength, you also want to be flexible in the adductors so that you don't overstretch yourself when you're running. So making sure that you add some stretches that stretch the inner thighs are really good. So seated butterflies are really nice to help with the inner thighs. That's where you sit down together, put your feet together, and then kind of push down your thighs so you get that nice stretch on the inside of the inner thigh there. And then the other strength area that can help you with downhill running, and actually can help you with all your running, is to work on your core strength and to work on your balance. So running is a single leg sport. It's going from one foot to the other and maintaining that balance and stability as you're going from one foot to the other. So working on your balance, working on your core strength is really, really important. Really simple way to work on your balance is to do single leg balances. Stand on one leg for 30 seconds and then stand on the other leg for 30 seconds. And then once you can do that with no problem, close your eyes and give yourself a little bit of extra balance. But one exercise that I really like doing is a single leg halo. That's where you stand on one leg, you have your arms above your head, and you're creating a halo. So arms nice and straight, and you're creating a halo above your head. You can add weight to that, so a dumbbell or a medicine ball. Start off with a light one. That's really going to challenge your balance. It's going to create that core stability so that your core is strong when you're moving, which is exactly what you want it to be when you're running. Another core exercise I particularly like is a dead bug, because that kind of replicates the opposite arm, opposite leg movement of running. So it's a good way to get that crossbody core activated and working and strong. With these tips, I really hope that it's going to give you more confidence as you run downhill. Running downhill, it can be a lot of fun, but only, I think, if you've got the confidence and you're not worried and you're not scared about kind of falling over or anything. So all these things, the practice, the technique, the strength, is all going to help you to just become a more confident runner, both downhill and actually across your whole running. Anything that you can do to help you with the downhill running will help you with your running in general. So it's worth spending a little bit of time doing these exercises, doing the practice, and kind of looking at your technique as you're running downhill. So as I said, I really hope this video has helped you feel more confident when you're running downhill. And if you would like more bespoke training ideas and perhaps to talk about how coaching might help you at your next hilly race, then do get in touch. I'd love to chat, and all the contact details are below. Okay, any questions, any comments, please put them down. I'd love to know what you thought, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.